procrastination.
Procrastination.
Yeah, whether you have some experience with where that maybe comes from, that people, is it only the, with the I identification and neurotics behind, that maybe someone feels pushed to do and says no, until it's not. Do we have any, do we know?
Well,
something?
yeah, I mean, we could just say procrastination happens, or it doesn't happen, and so what? Who cares? And we could just leave it at that. But let's say a little bit more, just because it might be interesting. Yeah, I mean, the most obvious thing to say about procrastination, it's usually the result of neurosis. It's usually the result of a neurotic anxiety. I mean, what is procrastination about, really? Procrastination is about the danger that I might make the wrong decision. So I procrastinate, I put it off. So that's a kind of neurotic feeling and neurotic belief. The only other two things I can think of saying, I used to teach management studies to some degree, and we covered decision making, which of course is what procrastination is about. I can only think of two other things to say, one of which is if you have a habit of procrastinating and you don't like it, you could employ what's called a conflict resolution device. Because procrastination is like an inner conflict, conflict with myself. And a conflict resolution device, that is a conflict, can the camera get that? That is a conflict resolution device. Toss a coin. Have you read The Dice Man? Have you come across The Dice Man by Luke Reinhardt? That's a good strategy for those who there's nothing wrong with procrastinating, but for those who are uncomfortable with their procrastination. Luke Reinhardt spent a period of time living by the throw of a dice. A dice has 6 sides, so you have 6 possibilities as to what you might do. You throw the dice, you do whichever possibility comes down. No procrastination.
To be honest, this is quite a habit here. And sometimes there's much anger about it. And the more I want to get rid of it, the stronger it gets. And it seems to be a law or a rule which is not really existing. And it's finally what it is. And sometimes it's not. And it's all mixed up and sometimes confusing me. That is like this and not. And
yeah, well, this is how the monkey mind works.
Yeah,
And you brought in kind of another thing there, which is what a lot of psychologists call a secondary problem. You see, firstly, and that's always more difficult to deal with, and it always involves even more neurosis. So first we have a problem of some kind. We feel something uncomfortable. So let's say, something happens and I feel angry about it. So that's the primary problem, right? Then, the more neurotic we are, the more likely we are then to create a secondary problem. So I feel angry, and then perhaps I feel guilty because I feel angry. You see? So you feel a sense of procrastination, and then you feel a sense of anger because you procrastinate. So that secondary feeling is the neurotic one. I feel angry, and then I feel guilty because I feel angry. That's the neurotic feeling. The secondary feeling, the neurotic one, is always more difficult to deal with. I feel angry, well, so what? Anger comes, anger goes. I feel guilty, well, so what? Well, the so what is guilt tends to be a lot more sticky than anger. So anger comes, anger goes. Guilt comes, guess what? Guilt doesn't go, it sticks around. So quite a lot of psychotherapy is sometimes or often about dealing with those secondary problems. The other thing, I said two things came to me. One is use a conflict resolution device. The other thing is, I don't know whether you might regard this as good news or not, but procrastination, delaying decisions, avoiding decisions, is obviously intimately connected with kind of goal setting and achieving goals. We feel like the more we procrastinate, the less good we are at achieving goals. And we can go out there and buy lovely books about how to become a successful person by setting goals and achieving goals. Well, guess what? There's been a lot of psychological research on this. And people who are really good at setting goals, it doesn't help. It doesn't help. There's research into this now. In fact, there's some research which suggests that the more firmly we set goals, the less likely we are to achieve them. And there's a great deal of research that suggests if we're really good at setting goals and achieving them, we're likely to be setting the wrong goals and making our lives worse. So if we kind of do lally around through life, taking life easy and as it comes or whatever, we're just as likely to be successful. There's a lovely, I can't remember the name of the book, it doesn't matter, there's a lovely example of this in a book where there is a major American car company, I can't remember if it was Chevrolet, I'm not sure. They destroyed themselves through goal setting. They went bankrupt through goal setting. They set this goal, and it was an idiotic goal. But once they set it, they couldn't get away from it. Everybody was really committed to it. All the management were committed to it. They even spent money producing pins to stick in their lapel, which had a little symbol on them to remind them of this goal they set. The goal was to, because the company was failing, come to a non-duality talk. You never know what you're going to hear about. The goal was, there is a kind of relevance. I just love this stuff. There's such a wonderful irony about it. When we think we're doing something, when we think we're taking control. The goal was, because the Japanese cars were really threatening the American car industry at the time, so the goal was to raise the percentage of this company's cars which were sold in America, so that 20% of American cars came from this company. I don't know what the level they started at, 12%, something like this. So the goal was we're going to raise that to 20%. Now, how are we going to do that? Well, we've got to advertise. We've got to popularise. We've got to get out there. We've got to sell. Not once they set this goal, and they even went to the extent, as I said, they spent money to produce these little lapel badges that all the managers wore to remind them every time they look down, they look in the mirror, oh yes, that's our goal, we've really got to achieve this goal. Not once did anybody stop and say, well, maybe a better goal would be to improve the cars so people wanted to buy them. Nobody thought of that, so they went bankrupt. They went bankrupt. Because they set the wrong goal. I love that. So maybe you can relax into procrastinating. The evidence is that setting clear goals and going out to achieve them is of no help whatsoever. It does not help. Have you heard of it's what's called survivor bias? It's one of our cognitive biases, one of these kind of ways of thinking that we have that always mislead us about the way the world is. One of our cognitive biases is survivor bias. And what happens with survivor bias is we pay far more attention to the people who succeed. We forget about the people who fail. We don't take any notice of them. So we have these wonderful how to succeed books written by successful people. Like, for example, in Britain, it might be Richard Branson, the owner of Virgin Airlines, a highly successful person. So Richard Branson writes a book about why he's so successful. And guess what? He's so successful because of his qualities. These are the qualities that I have that have made me so successful. I get up early, very early in the morning. I set very clear goals. I listen to my workforce. I don't go to bed before every job is done. It might be something like that. A list of, the four rules of behaviour for highly successful people. And so we buy the book and then we buy the idea. Well, guess what? There are hundreds of thousands of people out there who follow exactly those same rules. They get up early, they set clear goals, they listen to the people around them, they don't go to bed till every task is done, and they fail. But because they fail, we don't take any notice of them because of this cognitive bias, because of survivor bias. So we think that Richard Branson is talking sense when he's talking absolute crap. So the next time you come across a book called The 7 Characteristics of Highly Successful People, give it to 7 Steps to Enlightenment. I know, there's one outside there. Give it to a charity. No, don't give it to a charity shop because some poor beggar might buy it and read it and be misled by it. The only place for a book called The 7 Habits of Highly Successful People is in the recycling bin. Send it to the paper recycling plant along with these 7 habits or 7 steps to enlightenment. Send it to the recycling plant where they can make toilet paper out of it.
So, nothing, or nothingness, has been seen. And the person has returned. And there's quite a change. And things that were sort of meaningful previously are not so meaningful, and that in itself is okay, good. But then there's also the day-to-day thing of earning a living, for example, which seems to be slightly problematic in that the previous what word do I want? Ambition, I suppose. Ambition, that sort of thing, has really faded away. And so to put it in personal terms, I 2 years ago stopped working and spent a lot of time just resting, and actually needed to rest and became very rested. And then it's like, well, I need to work, but I don't have that same, it's to get back into that same field, this sort of commercial driven field is not appealing at all, and nothing else is coming along. It's just this sort of strange place to be, really. You have anything to say on that?
No. Well, it's a common description. I mean, that's the first thing that comes to me. It's a common description when emptiness is seen but not fullness, if you like to use ridiculous language, when awakening has happened but not liberation, if you like. You've given a very good description of what is often left in the life of the apparent person: a lack of motivation, a collapse of belief, collapse of interest in things, a feeling that needing just to be quiet. You're in better shape than some, because what is often reported also is quite a deep sense of despair. So for some, it's a really, really painful place to be. You know, and I get phone calls from people who are in that very painful place. I can't really say more than that. You're in better shape than some. And what you're reporting is often reported. And congratulations for resisting ending that with "so what to do."
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I can at least relax into procrastination now, though.
Yeah. Relax into being. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So let's start school. Path of procrastination, relaxing.
Well, yeah, it's I don't know if it's ironic, because procrastination is often not at all relaxing.
Yes, yes.
Seeing that there is no one who procrastinates, that there is no one who makes decisions, that stuff just happens, that can be profoundly relaxing. Yeah.
Sometimes there isn't any resistance anymore, which is very familiar that there was resistance.
Yeah.
Now sometimes it's just seeing, I want it, and just doing it. That's so different. Yeah, as if there was a kind of a veil or illusions, I don't know, something which makes the procrastination things going. Sometimes it's gone, and it's easy, and sometimes it's complicated.
join the club.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Then I try to get it back, this ease.
Yeah,
It's
of course.
no way.
Join the club again, yeah. I was relaxed and now it's gone, so I'm going to get it back. I'm going to really try to get relaxed. Yeah, it's a kind of natural response. Yeah.
But when, as you said before, mountains are mountains again, will ambition or impulses to do something come back?
They may or they may not. I mean, again, you know, I've used this phrase so many times over the weekend. You know, there are tendencies. There are no rules, absolutely no rules. We're talking about liberation. How could there be any rules? The moment you've got a rule, you've got a prison. You haven't got liberation. So anything can happen. And we can notice that there are some tendencies. And one of those tendencies is often a severe decrease in ambition. But it doesn't have to be like that. It's not necessarily going to be like that. So when mountains are mountains again, there may be tremendous ambition. Or none at all. My feeling is, for example, my feeling is that creativity is likely to be quite healthy. Because again, neurosis is a great crusher of creativities in a way. So when mountains are mountains again, and there's, let's say, as they sometimes say in Taoism or in Zen, there's just living in that natural state, there may be quite a flow of creativity, which may kind of contain within it its own ambition. But there's no rules. There may be just a sitting around, doing very little. So what? Doesn't matter.
Another thing I've noticed is, along with the decrease in ambition, there's a sort of forgetfulness.
Oh gosh, yes.
Everything, and
Yeah.
I don't remember what I did yesterday,
Yeah.
and what was the task I was planning to do today.
Yeah. And you might notice that you don't need to remember what you did yesterday or what was the task you were planning. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. That is really, really a really common characteristic of what we're talking about here. Memory. I think I already quoted on Friday night this Australian writer about non-duality, Richard Barry. Memory fucked, he says. Or memory gone, fucked beyond belief. That's very, very common. And it turns out we don't need much memory anyway. I mean, we need functional memory. I mean, I bet that... Do you have a home?
Yeah.
You have an address? I bet when you leave here this afternoon, you'll be able to find your way back to your home. You see, so functional memory functional memory does work.
But when there's a person looking at it, it could be like, oh, are these first signs of Alzheimer's?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, and it isn't. No. Functional memory goes on working, and it turns out we don't need much memory anyway, because it's amazing how much memory can be replaced with a piece of paper on the kitchen table.
Yeah.
That's what I do. That's in a way the difference between, we could say the difference between this and Alzheimer's or dementia, or one of the differences. is that in Alzheimer's and dementia, the biographical information also tends to disappear. When it does disappear, gradually or quickly it disappears. So that question about, well, will you be able to find your way home to your own address tonight? That becomes a serious question for the Alzheimer's sufferer. It doesn't become a serious question here because the functional information isn't affected. The way you weren't here on Friday evening, were you?
No.
The way I was trying to explain it on Friday evening, it's a metaphor I used in my first book. It's like when there's a person there, you know, fully formed, separate person there, it's like the past. It's like it's a three-dimensional landscape. It's like a model but laid out in 3 dimensions, so you can get into it and you can run around in it, and you can revisit bits of the past, and it has a real kind of emotional reality to it. In even a split second of seeing, even a split second of just seeing emptiness, that can all collapse, and then what you're left with is, instead of this 3-dimensional model, you're left with a 2-dimensional painting. And the point about a 2-dimensional painting is all the information is still there, but you can't get into a 2-dimensional painting and run around in it. So all the information is still there, but all the affect, all the emotional experience of it has just gone. So there's no need to worry about that loss of memory, but it is very common. Yeah. Okay,
Thank you.
that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.